I'm studying people who are calling themselves critical zone observatory network. It's a set of people, NSF is financing some of them in the US, and there are many in China and in Europe, who are trying basically to equip watershed most often with as many equipment as possible to make sure that we begin to understand what the critical zone is for them. And what I'm interested in is especially to try to understand how this different group of scientists spread around the world build what you could call feedback loops to make us, the science first, but then also the general public around this watershed, sensitive to the effect of the action on the space in which we are. In fact, we realize, and I realize with those scientists, that it's extremely difficult to be sensitive to what happened to the land and to the territory and the soil we inhabit. We are here. It is a small, thin varnish, or a skin, if you wish. Tiny, tiny skin, a few kilometers here, a few kilometers there, which some scientists call critical zone, to describe that it's where we live and everything else live. It's not seen from above, it's not seen from a position of anywhere, it's actually always seen by scientists and activists, politicians, citizens, laterally. How do you visualize where we are? Which should be a simple question. Philosophers had imagined that we knew where we reside by saying, the scientific worldview is one thing, but the lived world is something else. So we had an idea through phenomenology, through many philosophical movements, through the humanities, through poetry, that we could actually situate ourselves as a lived world completely different from the scientific world. This was, so to speak, the 20th century solution to the problem we are dealing today. But of course, now with the question of the ecological mutation of the Anthropocene, it doesn't work. We don't want to be in a lived world. We want the world, which will let the other world, the one known by scientists, to this view from nowhere. Because now we can't just see the world from nowhere. We need to situate ourselves. It's not a globe. It's a thin pellicule of slightly fragile and robust set of intertwined life form, which is very different from the vision you could have of life if you have this vision, and which is just as scientific, which is of course the reason why in STS we are working on this. So here basically you could say this is the realm of what would be called, if a little pedantic French philosopher is allowed to use a bit of Latin, which I know you should not do anymore, it's res extensa, which is this idea that there is an isomorphic space in which planets and everything else is situated. Here it's completely different. There are things in which space is situated.
The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord Thank you. This agreement is less about the climate and more about other countries gaining a financial advantage over the United States.
Next, this is an executive order relating to the use of paper straws. As you've consistently identified, nobody really likes paper straws.
#1 trending. Can you believe it? A paper straw was #1 trending for 3 days or something.
The environmental impact of plastic straws versus paper straws is entirely unclear. This has cost both the government and private industry an absolute ton of money and left consumers all over the country wildly dissatisfied with their straws. So we're asking aspects of the federal government, federal departments and agencies to look at their existing procurement processes, and we're asking your Domestic Policy Council to look holistically at this issue to address it, and it really is something that affects ordinary Americans in their everyday lives.
We're going back to plastic straws. These things don't work. I've had them many times, and on occasion they break, they explode. If something's hot, they don't last very long, like a matter of minutes, sometimes a matter of seconds. It's a ridiculous situation. So we're going back to plastic straws. I think it's okay. And I don't think that plastic's going to affect a shark very much as they're munching their way through the ocean. Okay.
Dash 12.